Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another of our Torah Study sessions. We'll start, as always, we're going to take the news that we may have been looking at, putting it off to the side, taking a little bit of a break. I'm going to grab one of my kippot. I think today, which one do I want to wear? What's that from? Oh, this is from one of my friend's weddings. I will wear this, so I can think of them while I'm doing this today. All right, so we've got our Tanakh, and today the story, the Parsha rather, is about, I don't know, where did it go? There we go. Called Beshelach, and it's like the climax of the Torah. It's like the story that everyone knows. We celebrate it at the Seder. It's the Israelites leaving Egypt, having the sea split up. And it's written, I think, in one of the more... Torah sometimes can be kind of dry and not terribly interesting to read. But this one actually is written sort of very much like what we... I don't know. Man, what am I saying? It's written in a really compelling way. Something really exciting is happening. Here we go. Okay. The Israelites are at the Red Sea, and the water is there, and they've noticed that the Egyptian army is coming up behind them, so they're worried. The angel of God, who had been going ahead of the Israelite army, now moved and followed behind them. And the pillar of cloud shifted from in front of them and took up a place behind them. And it came between the army of the Egyptians and the army of Israel. Thus there was a cloud with the darkness, and it cast a spell upon the night, so that the one could not come near the other all throughout the night. Then Moses held out his arm over the sea as instructed, and the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind all that night, and turned the sea into high ground. The waters were split, and the Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians came in pursuit after them into the sea, all of Pharaoh's chariots, horses, and horsemen. At the morning watch, the Lord looked down upon the Egyptian army from a pillar of fire and cloud, and threw the Egyptian army into panic. God locked the wheels of their chariots, so that they moved forward with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Hold out your arm over the sea, and the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, and upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." Moses held out his arm over the sea, and at daybreak the sea returned to its normal state, and the Egyptians fled at its approach. But the Lord hurled the Egyptians into the sea. The waters turned back and covered the chariots and the horsemen, Pharaoh's entire army, that followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. But the Israelites had marched through the sea on dry ground, and the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord delivered Israel that day from the Egyptians. Exciting stuff. Very dramatic, very compellingly written. There's a lot going on there. There's an interesting epilogue about Pharaoh, because sometimes we consider that Pharaoh, that's the end of Pharaoh's story. Pharaoh probably dies in those waters. But there is a tradition that Pharaoh actually survives and ends up becoming king of Nineveh, the same Nineveh that Jonah went to when, the whole story of Jonah and the whale or the big fish. God sends Jonah on a mission to Nineveh. Jonah doesn't want to go, so he flees at the storm. Jonah eventually ends up in Nineveh. And Jonah says, "God's really upset at your city. You all have to stop sinning. Otherwise, your city's going to be destroyed." And the people repent. The king leads them in repenting, and everything ends up well for Nineveh. And there's a tradition in Jewish thought that king is the Pharaoh, who has sort of, through the grace of God, survived the collapsing of the Red Sea on his army, so that he could have another opportunity to do the right thing. So when Jonah, this prophet, Moses was a prophet, when Jonah shows up to Nineveh, and says, God's really mad at you guys and is going to do something, Pharaoh, the king of Nineveh, has this experience. And he's able to say, oh, guys, the God that Jonah is talking about is real serious. And we really got to take this threat seriously and correct our behavior. And it's interesting that Pharaoh gets a second chance. And second chances are important, though. We all need them. Most of the people who we know need second chances. And I really like how even Pharaoh, this guy who generally is terrible and a very aggressive jerk, it's not like Pharaoh in the story of Passover is in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not like he is forced to do things he doesn't want to do. He is a bad person and he is pretty firm about it and he's a jerk. And that's it. But then after having all of these experiences with God and the plagues and the sea, he repents. And he repents to the point where later in life, when he's faced with the same kind of problem, he helps rescue other people. And he says, I was like you once, but I've learned. And so now that I'm your leader, I'm going to take what happened to me in the past and pass it on to you. And so I really like that idea. And I hope that it clicks with you as well, that people need second chances as long as they are taking the right steps to better themselves. Second chances don't have to turn into third and fourth and fifth and infinite. At a certain point, we're certainly able to say, no, enough is enough with my interaction with this person. And certainly, if someone wrongs you, you don't have to be the person to give them the second chance. But in general, I think that people should be given a second chance kind of socially. And I think that this is a idea that's taught in Judaism as well. Even though Moses doesn't have to give Pharaoh a second chance, the Israelites don't have to give Pharaoh a second chance. It's that he has a second chance in life. So, with that in mind, let's turn over to our Misha Barak. It's a prayer of healing. So if you have anyone in your life who is needing some healing, whether something physical or emotional or spiritual, remember it could range all the way from they have COVID-19 and it's very bad, or they have pandemic fatigue and they're missing being around people and they live alone and that's also bad. Or maybe you can think of someone in your life who needs a second chance, or maybe you can remember a time in your life when you needed and got a second chance. I hope you got it. So let's do that. There we go. All right, so thank you again for joining me for this study session. I hope you have a great Shabbat and a great rest of the weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Oh, right. If you have any questions about anything, either you want to talk about the portion or you want to talk about something else that's on your mind, then feel free to email me at the Jewish Life email, and keep your eye out for the new monthly program email if you're on that list, because we got some exciting stuff coming up. All right. Shabbat Shalom.